Perfect. All right. Well, welcome today, everyone. We're here for the webinar, Two Generations Together, Securing Two-Gen Funding Streams. My name is Emily Dropkin. I'm the Director of Policy, Data, and Research at the National Head Start Association. This is the second of our 6 webinar series about our Two Generations Together work and highlighting some outstanding practices, but also some mechanisms for getting work underway in Head Start programs around really deeply supporting the parents and families that we work with. So with us today, in addition to myself, you'll get to hear from Denise Harlow, who's the CEO of Community Action Partnership, the National Community Action Partnership. We'll also hear from Mindy Zapata, who's a Head Start and Early Head Start Director at Southwest Human Development, which is a Head Start organization in Phoenix, Arizona. She's joined as well by Katie Johnson, who's one of her funding partners for their two-generation work, who's the Executive Director of the Live and Learn Foundation. Just a quick overview of our agenda. I'll begin with an introduction for any of you who have not been on one of our webinars or events previously. We'll hear from Denise about some of the federal funding streams that support two-generation work and different aspects of helping low-income families. I'll talk about some of the current federal funding opportunities that you should be aware of. We'll hear from the Southwest Human Development example about seeking two-generation funding and what their program went through as they got off the ground. And then we'll let you know about some of the upcoming opportunities to continue this conversation. I'll just leave this up for a second. I won't read you the entire thing. But as you'll see, this coming Monday, when NHSA launches our new website, which I encourage you all to go take a look at, we really are organizing our content into several centers. And the work of the Center for Policy, Data, and Research, which includes our two-generation focus, really sees our role as curating knowledge about Head Start to support program leadership and sharing the wisdom and experience of Head Start programs, to generate new analyses and reflections on program and policy priorities, and to strengthen dialogue and collaboration between practitioners and researchers. And we really see our two-generation focus as this effort to curate the knowledge and leadership of Head Start programs. We know that local communities are doing this well and in different ways that make sense for your populations. But we also think that there are opportunities for you to share your good ideas with each other to make sure that we're being as innovative and effective as possible, and then spreading the lessons we've learned from that innovation. If you haven't seen it already, hopefully you have, we did put out our formal case study report this January, which featured 6 Head Start programs. That day we held an elaborate institute here in DC. You can watch all of the institute on our YouTube page if you're interested. We have our webinar series ongoing, as well as a listserv, a learning network to support folks talking to one another and sharing resources and ideas. Before we get into our main content for today, I do want to take us through a couple polls to help those of us presenting understand who you are and what questions we might hear from you. So one question that really will affect how you approach two-generation work is what kind of agency you're within. Are you a standalone Head Start? Are you, looking at this, are you a community action agency? And you should see that now on your screen. You can go ahead and answer that question. Interesting. I'll show you the results in a second. Okay. So with 71% responding, it looks like about a third of you are community action organizations, and about 53% are nonprofit organizations, presumably meaning other types of standalone community-based nonprofits, whether that's a YMCA or a child development center. 13% said other, but we didn't have anyone say who are with us that they're school systems or government agencies. Interesting. Our next question asks you to reflect on the size of your program to help us understand what kind of scale you're looking at, because that certainly will influence how you approach this work if you're trying to find resources for 5 families or 1,005 families. Okay. I'll close that and let you all see. And so here we've got a lot more of a spread. 18% of you said you serve fewer than 200 children. 35% said you serve 200 to 500 children. 12% between 500 and 1,000. 29% between 1,000 and 5,000. So some of you are, that's our second big group. And then 6% more than 5,000. So quite a range here as we see across the Head Start field. And so our last question before we go ahead and get started asks you, what types of two-generation focuses are you really hoping, as you start to look ahead towards the fall, what is it that you're really hoping to build in your community? Is it asset building? Is it helping parents get pre-college skills? You can choose as many of these as you'd like. We know that many of your families have different priorities, or that sometimes the same family will have multiple priorities. Okay, and I'll go ahead and close that and let you see. What we see is that about close to 90% of you said that asset building and savings is something that's important that you're working on with your families for next year. This is actually, I think, Financial Capability Month or something else like that ACF has declared. So you should be sure to check out their resources if you're part of the listserv. I sent them out yesterday. Half of you said building pre-college skills like getting a GED or an English language certificate. 63% said accessing safe and stable housing, food, and health care. Definitely priorities for some low-income families. 69% said getting job training for high-needs jobs. And 50% said you'd like to help families work on earning college credits toward a degree. And we know, of course, that many of these priorities are often happening in tandem for a lot of folks. All right. So with that, I am excited to turn us over to our first guest presenter of the day, Denise Harlow from the Community Action Partnership, who's going to talk with us about the role of community action and some of the federal funding streams that are available for two-generation work. Denise?
Great. Thanks, Emily. Good afternoon and good morning, folks. Glad to be with you. As many of you, great to hear so many community action agencies are on today's webinar. As many of you know, Community Action is a national network of anti-poverty organizations. We have about 1,000 community action agencies across the country, many of whom operate Head Start programs. So we're very pleased to be partnering with the National Head Start Association today on today's webinar. So let's go to the first slide there, Emily. And I know that probably many of you have been engaged in the work at NHSA in terms of their ongoing training around 2Gen. Hopefully you've watched some of the videos and been a part of some of the ongoing conversations and have read the report. But certainly Aspen Ascend Project is one of the groups that we certainly have highlighted at Community Action Partnership at our events, and we're pleased to see the partnership with NHSA because the elements of 2Gen really cross well with Community Action and with Head Start. Certainly when it comes to education, economic supports, and social capital, what Aspen tells us about 2Gen is that it really is an intentional work around bundling products and services both for the children in the home as well as the parents, grandparents, or other guardians in the home. So there are certain programs around models that provide services, again, both to meet parents and their children together. It's not just one or the other. It also doesn't really say intentional on here, but I oftentimes come back to the term intentional when it comes to 2Gen because it's not really kind of a willy-nilly scenario. It's really we're trying to be thoughtful of what kind of programs we link together. So see here under policies, for instance, in Head Start, What can we do to make sure we develop programming that goes beyond parent engagement, which we do really, really well in Head Start, to creating formal educational and workforce opportunities for parents? And it says here develop. I don't think that necessarily means, and we'll talk about this, that we need to do it ourselves as local Head Starts. There are oftentimes ways we can partner with existing entities. If we're embedded in a CAP agency, certainly the CAP oftentimes has these programs. If you're embedded in another type of nonprofit organization, which I hear on the phone that we have a number of, many of those organizations will have a lot of these services available, and certainly there are other partnerships in the community that one can create. But we'll talk a little bit about doing what you do well and partnering for these other components to develop an intentional approach. Certainly there are systems change elements that oftentimes impact two-generational approach to addressing poverty. Certainly around blending of other early childhood funding, we've been seeing a lot of that happening at the state level, of different ways to incorporate early childhood funding to move families out of poverty. And then we'll touch here as well, embedding a research component into our work as much as possible so we can really learn to create and begin to build that body of knowledge that really is required to show that, you know what, Head Start, we really do know what we're doing when it comes to two-generational approaches to poverty, and Head Start is a critical element of those two-gen approaches. So let's go to the next slide. So as I said, I believe Head Start really is a critical linchpin for families in order to move them out, to help move them out of poverty. Head Start is much more than child care. I was at an event the other day and someone talked about Head Start and child care, and really, as you know, it goes much more beyond that to really true early childhood education. The curriculum, the teacher qualifications, we really are an element of early childhood education. From our perspective as well, it's also about moving families out of poverty. Head Start is just one element of a bundle of services families need to help build towards self-sufficiency. And those early Head Start and Head Start years for a family when they're engaged in your programs, that really is a critical linchpin that we have a unique opportunity, a unique moment in time to invest in these families from a two-gen approach to give them the strength, the assets, and the tools for the outgoing years when they're no longer in our circle of influence. So again, being having intentionality with our approach while they're in our Head Start program can really pay dividends in the long term. So what can it really mean for a Head Start program to develop programming that goes beyond parent engagement? We really see that it goes beyond the policy council, which though is a critical element of parent engagement. And I oftentimes hear from folks, you know, that the benefits that kids get from Head Start are really phenomenal, but oftentimes really is that impact on parents through their engagement in the classroom, engagement in policy council, those tools that they give parents in terms of advocacy on behalf of their own child, carry forward on behalf of the parents, sometimes that are even greater than the impact on the child. But those parents are much more equipped to deal with school systems when their kid transfers out of Head Start and into the school system approach. What can we do around intentionality beyond classroom engagement? What can we do to go beyond basic Head Start requirements and beyond those parenting skills? So if we go to the next slide, again, I really believe this connection is a natural. The Head Start and community action, Head Start and other nonprofit organizations, whether it's YWCAs, whether it's the Red Cross, Salvation Army, standalone multi-service nonprofits that have Head Start embedded within them. There are a lot of ways that embedding Head Start within another type of organization has a lot of benefit. But oftentimes a CAP or a Head Start agency is standalone or may not have those assets within their own organization. And sometimes when Head Starts are within community action agencies, the full bundle of services is not necessarily available. Well, let's go to the next slide. I want to talk a little bit about the types of services that community action agencies do provide oftentimes to families, whether they're engaged in Head Start, early Head Start, or not. So if you are not partnering with your CAP agency, I hope you do. But these are a variety of the assistance services that we oftentimes provide to families. Many folks know us because of the immediate family stabilization that we provide to families. We have a lot of emergency services across the country, whether that's help with their heating or cooling through LIHEAP, whether that's through enrollment in WIC, Women's Infant and Children programs, to make sure they're having SNAP, making sure that they're getting housing subsidies or housing assistance. Many of our CAP agencies run housing authorities, or they might run subsidized housing or supportive housing environments as well. Financial literacy and asset development. A lot of our CAP agencies are very engaged in VITA, voluntary income tax prep, where we also link families up with family literacy, banking products, and other tools to help them develop assets for the long haul. Many of our agencies are also engaged in employment and training, providing both soft skills training, but sometimes more important, what the research shows is really tangible skills development, whether that's learning new software programs, so you can go work in an environment where you're using a lot of technology, whether you're developing in a certified nursing assistance program, whether you're in a child care development credentialing program, places where you can actually develop credentials or accreditations that you can take with you into the workplace. We oftentimes work closely with community colleges and other educational institutions to help folks engage in community college curriculum, help support them in those efforts, maybe provide wraparound health care or child care programs to make their community college experience much more successful. Many of our agencies are involved with health care services and then child care for all sorts of ages of children, everything from infants and toddlers certainly to after-school programs for middle school kids, if not after-school programs for adolescents. So if we go to the next slide, I know Emily wanted us to talk a little bit about some of the funding streams that both CAP agencies utilize as well as other nonprofits that Head Start programs can partner with. And again, I go back to that intentionality about partnering with entities to provide parents and other guardians with some of these wraparound services. Many of you may be familiar with one-stops that are funded through the old WIA, Workforce Investment Act. Now it's WIOA, the Workforce Investment and Innovation Act. CAP agencies, because they receive community services block grant funds, are actually mandated partners in the one-stop centers. So depending on the parts of the country that you're located in, one-stops may be operated by the local CAP agency. They may be operated by the local Department of Labor office. They might be operated by another nonprofit. They could be a standalone entity. But whomever is operating that one-stop, we hope that Head Start programs find a way to liaison with those one-stops, because those workforce innovation shops are really going to be places where parents can go to get training, they can get resume help, they can do a lot of connections with opportunities in the community. HPOG, the Health Professional Opportunity Grants, I know Emily will be talking about an open funding announcement around this right now. We've had CAPs very engaged in HPOG grants where they're actually having family members, adults, parents come in, get trained in healthcare career paths, whether it's a certified nursing assistant, whether it's engaging in other health-related career paths. What kind of technical training can we provide to help provide families, or parents, excuse me, an upward mobility through a career path? That gets me to career pathways. Many of you may remember during the stimulus era there was money around career pathways, and some of this money still is around the Department of Labor, really trying to create pathways for parents. It's not just getting them a job. It's not giving them a single skill set. It's really trying to work with parents over a period of time where they develop some skills, build on those skills perhaps to get further education, and to develop further to get higher paying or living wage jobs. Community action agencies, as I mentioned, receive their designation because they receive the Community Services Block Grant funding. CSBG is different than CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant. CSBG is oftentimes flexible funding within a CAP agency, where CAPs are able to develop different programs and services that are unique to their community. Every 3 years at minimum, sometimes it's more frequent, just like in Head Start where you have to do a Head Start community assessment, CAP agencies also need to do a comprehensive community needs assessment around poverty. Many who run Head Starts do those two assessments continuously with one another, so they aren't double dipping their work necessarily. Well, if you're not involved with that needs assessment process with your local CAP agency, I encourage you to think about becoming engaged, because oftentimes the findings of that needs assessment are probably going to be around job creation, living wage jobs, how do we create career pathways for families, and if your Head Start program can be engaged in those conversations, I think that can be helpful. These do work from the family development perspective, where we work as with case manager, but oftentimes it's comprehensive family-wide. So again, if you're thinking a two-generational approach, if you're engaging with a case manager who's working with the entire family or with the parents in a different way through the CAP agency, they may provide you with some other unique opportunities. As I mentioned, a lot of CAPs are involved with VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, financial literacy and asset development, and I'm glad Emily mentioned that it's financial capacity capability month. Excuse me, I know HHS, I think, just sent out a Dear Colleague letter around all the different products and services. One of the things that Community Action is really proud of right now, we're working very closely with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau on their Your Money, Your Goals training. We're hoping to train 1,000 case managers across the country in this resource. Once they're trained, we're hoping that they will train other case managers in their partner nonprofit organizations in their community. If you want to learn more about Your Money, Your Goals, please email me after today's webinar, and I can link you with our person on staff who is working with the CAPS across the country to train on Your Money, Your Goals, which is a really great resource that trains both case managers in a variety of tools to help families, with the hope that those case managers will work directly with families on budgeting, on credit repayment, on debt restructuring, a variety of things that help the families that they're working with improve. But in some ways, it also helps the individual case manager look more carefully at their own financial literacy, their own financial capacity, so that they can in turn be very comfortable helping the families that they're working with. It's a very unique, it's a wonderful product. So again, please feel free to email me after today's webinar if you want to learn more. Other programs that we're involved with are displaced homemaker programs funded through the Department of Labor. Home visiting, many folks are familiar with the Nurse-Family Partnership, but we know there are many home visiting programs, many of whom involve social workers or other case managers. We know Nurse Family gets a lot of press because a lot of the evidence base behind it, but a lot of home visiting programs are out there that are very effective. And in Head Start, you're very familiar with a lot of those models because many of you are oftentimes in the homes with families. CAP agencies are also very engaged in CHIP and Medicaid enrollments. We've been involved with the Affordable Care Act, which again is one of those supports around 2Gen that parents are looking for. A lot of our CAPs are also involved with fatherhood initiatives, and I believe Emily's going to talk a bit about some open funding announcements around fatherhood in a bit. And certainly around housing, a lot of our CAP agencies are very engaged in housing. And when you're talking about 2Gen, if you look at the housing world, they talk a lot about housing first. If someone's not stable in their home environment, how do we expect them to learn? How do we expect them to thrive? How do we expect them to develop the skill sets we need them to in order to become self-sufficient? So I hope that you will link with your local CAP agency around housing programs as well. So if we go to this next slide, I just want to kind of end with a couple of things that I think are core elements of today's conversation. As local entities, it's important that you do what you do really well. If you're a Head Start provider, we have a lot of large Head Start providers, it sounds like, on the phone. What you do really, really well. We know how effective Head Start is. So when we're looking at 2-generational approaches to poverty, I hope that you're not thinking that you need to develop all those programs that we just talked about inside your own organization. Partner with other entities who do those programs really well. Partner with the housing entity. Partner with the financial literacy group. Partner with other groups who are doing good stuff on health care. Partner with the group who's doing that emergency services stabilization work for families. And you can really try to build an intentional 2-generational approach. If you're a CAP agency, I hope that many of you are doing these comprehensive services that can help bundle these services for your families, that your Head Start kids and your Head Start families aren't isolated or siloed. I know in Community Action we've really been working over the last 10 years to de-silo our organizations and move from being a Head Start family to being a CAP agency family. And I know there's a lot of challenges there with technology. But I know many CAP agencies do a really great job of serving the entire family, working with the child, but also with the parents. And finally, partnering with academic institutions. CAP agencies are working more closely with academic groups. As the years go by, many are being used as a laboratory for research on what's working really well in terms of both bundled services as well as 2-generational approaches to poverty. I hope that many of you will think about reaching out to your local academic institutions for being a partner on academic studies. We need to build the cohort of research available around 2-generational approaches to poverty, and I believe that CAP agencies are a wonderful laboratory for that research to take place within. So finally, here's some contact information. Again, please reach out to me if you have comments or questions after today's webinar about Community Action. If you don't know who your CAP is in your local community, our website at communityactionpartnership.com can connect you with your local CAP. But again, I'm a social worker. I work with a number of many nonprofits. I've worked with a number of nonprofits. So if your local CAP is not the right provider, find the right provider who provides these resources and services. I know many of them would open their arms wide to the local Head Start program and look forward to engaging with you in new and creative ways. And finally, my last slide is just a little promotion. Our Community Action Annual Convention is in San Francisco this year. It is open. We hope to partner with groups in California who provide services to children and families beyond community action, whether that's the Head Start Association and others. We welcome everyone who works with families to our event. And we do invite the National Head Start Association will hopefully be joining us, as well as the Office of Head Start. So we encourage you to come join us, engage in these dialogues, and we look forward to working with you in the future. So Emily, I think that's what I had to at least say, and I know I talked really fast. My apologies, but I'm happy to take questions as we go through today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Denise. We do appreciate your partnership at the national level as well. And I think that as I show you my next few slides about the current funding opportunities, I think my last slide gets to what Denise just said, but really keep it in mind, which is it's important when we have two-generation conversations that we think about both being excellent at our own work and then thinking about, as we want to add more resources for our families and more components, making a reasoned and intentional decision about, does that mean building additional capacity yourselves within your staff to do this work? For some programs it does. Does it mean going to a partner who's really excellent at this work and building a strong relationship? For some people that's the right fit. So what I'm about to show you may seem like a lot in terms of writing grant applications, but it doesn't necessarily have to be something you do yourself. So I'll take you through a few slides about current opportunities that are either listed right now on the Health and Human Services Forecast website, many of them from ACS. Some of them have already been posted to grants.gov, which means they've set the deadline for when the applications will be due back. But all of these are open right now. So all of these are things that you and your communities could be thinking about. Is this a good fit for us? Do we want to write an application? And especially for Health and Human Services grants, I would argue that Head Start folks and anyone working in a community action program are probably very familiar with how these are structured. So the first two, as Denise mentioned, are the Health Profession Opportunity Grants, specifically for low-income individuals. And the second there is the same, but for tribal organizations. They're grants of up to $3 million to help low-income individuals obtain education and training for the healthcare field. And some of the funds for the project can be used for things like child care and case management. So really potentially a good fit for Head Start families. If you've heard of the Community Action Project in Tulsa in Oklahoma, they've gotten a lot of recognition for their Career Advance program, which is essentially Head Start plus a Health Profession Opportunity Grant, where they take some of their Head Start families and support them through this process of going along the healthcare trajectory, from getting their very initial CNA, certified nursing assistant, and moving up through the credentials and degrees to meet their family's needs in the long term. Unfortunately, the research on that is not out yet, but it sounds like they've got some promising indicators. Another opportunity under education, if you have higher education partners and you have a community with a large number of Hispanic families, there are grants available from the Department of Education right now for up to $650,000 to expand educational opportunities and academic attainment of Hispanic students. And we know that many community college and other college students are in fact parents across racial and ethnic groups. And so if you're working with higher education in that kind of a community, this may be something that they're interested in applying for, where you could be a partner in that. Some more education and workforce opportunities. WIA was mentioned, and the American Apprenticeship Initiative is a funding stream from the Department of Labor. The grants are due in just a couple weeks, but I would encourage you to find out if there are people in your communities applying for these funds. They're for partnerships, and it's deliberately stated it has to be at least some private businesses, but also some public nonprofit organizations or community action or other types of organizations working together to set up apprenticeship models so parents can, and families, low-income individuals, can move toward long-term careers and self-sufficiency. Finally, the Refugee Family Child Care Micro Enterprise Development Program is forecast right now. They haven't yet posted the application, the official funding announcement on grants.gov. But they'll be putting out grants to help refugees attain economic self-sufficiency by becoming licensed family child care owners. I know especially as many of you have new grant funding for early Head Start child care partnerships, you understand the importance of having strong family child care in your communities. And some of your programs and some Head Start programs across the country have worked to actually support Head Start parents becoming child care providers in the past, family child care homes. So this may be something that if you have a large refugee community in your service area, something you might want to consider as a stability opportunity for your family. This next set of bullets I've listed just so that you can see some of the other things that have come up recently. And as those winners of those grants get made in the next probably 6 months or so, keep an ear open in your communities for things like the environmental workforce development and job training programs, the performance partnership pilots, sustainable employment and economic development strategies grants for tribal communities, grants to support the oral health workforce. These are things that if they are in your community, may be really great opportunities to connect your Head Start parents with. I'm also talking very fast, and I can send you the slides later if you ask me for them and remind me. But do, by all means, type questions in the question box on the side if you have a question come up. Asset building has been mentioned a few times. And when we say assets, we mean things like getting a bank account, not relying on check cashing, services that often have exorbitant fees over time, really sort of not only getting a paycheck at the end of the day, but really understanding how to use that to build family savings and save towards goals that will support either family stability or educational and career attainment. So forecast right now from HHS is the Assets for Independence demonstration program. There was a similar one, the last bullet for tribal communities that recently closed, but those should be going out soon. And what these grants do, as well as the Refugee and Individual Development Account Program, they provide the program that receives the grants with some money to sort of administer and coordinate the program. But a lot of that money actually goes directly to matching the savings of the people who start individual development accounts. I think for one of them I was looking at this morning, it's up to $2,000 per participant, that their savings can be matched from this federal funding stream. So really a good way to leverage those federal dollars to help families make progress. And the last few that I'll show you here are related to family stability. Not necessarily for every family, but for many Head Start families, these could be a good fit. The first is Healthy Marriage and Relationship Education Grants. Don't just have to be for families who are married. It can be healthy marriage and relationship focused. But specifically, and this is directly taken from the language from HHS, it says design and skills designed to change behaviors of individuals and move families towards economic self-sufficiency. Certainly speaks to two-generation work. The other two grants both come out of the fatherhood effort. New Pathways for Fathers and Families is forecast now that'll give out 49 grants of up to $2 million. And again, while it includes many aspects of fatherhood, including relationships, co-parenting, and communication, there's also this component of contributing to the financial well-being of children through job training and other employment services. So really a nice opportunity there to integrate a lot of the things that we know matter for two-generation work. It's not just having the job. It's also having a nurturing relationship with the child so that that long-term bond is formed, and really having the communication skills to work on all angles of family stability. The third one then is another fatherhood piece, but specifically for fathers who've been involved with the justice system who are being released, but with a lot of the same focuses, a lot of the same opportunities to work with those fathers who've had different experiences but also need to gain some of those communication, relationships, and job skills. These are the two links that I go to when I'm trying to find out what's currently active. I would encourage all of you to check in regularly, or you can go there and set up alerts. So if something comes out with Head Start in the title or another keyword that you're thinking of, it'll send you an email. The forecasts from HHS, I expect many of you are familiar, but those are usually posted 30 to 60 to 90 days before the grant opportunity opens, to give a heads up and say, this is the funding that will be available, this is the estimated amount, the estimated number of awards, the eligibility rules. Really a good way to get a sense of what's coming, especially if you want to start planning with other partners in your community. You can also see all federal grant opportunities, including those that were in the Department of Education, the Department of Labor, the Department of Health and Human Services. All of those, once they're posted, are listed at grants.gov. And I would be shocked if any one of you doesn't already have grants.gov information and logins and all of that. That's a must if you don't. And just a reminder again then that as you plan for these and as you think about them, I mean, I hope that there's at least one of these that you've listened to and thought, that might fit our community, that's something we could explore. And as you do that, consider having your agency apply if that's what makes sense, and also look for local partners who might be applying and see if your local workforce board is applying for the apprenticeship initiative. Can you be written in as one of their partners to help facilitate parent referrals? Can you share some case management work? I mean, I think that there may be broader opportunities there, and I encourage you to explore them. All right. So with that, we are going to move on to our next pair of speakers, all the way from Arizona, who will share a different sort of funding model and how this program has gotten their two-generation work off the ground. Mindy?
Yes. Thank you so much. We're very happy to be part of this conversation about two-generation work, and I'm here with one of our collaborative partners from the Live and Learn Foundation, Katie Johnson. Emily had introduced me at the beginning of the webinar. My name is Mindy Zapata, and I'm the Early Head Start and Head Start Director. If you want to go ahead and proceed the slides. Our two-generation work here in Phoenix, Arizona really came, as Emily was just mentioning, I think as a Head Start organization, as we had begun to create systems to support our own teacher assistants in successfully accomplishing a CDA credential, we really noticed that those systems could really be expanded to support our families. And as we examined our parent, family, and community engagement data, we were really seeing highly engaged families that were wanting to have those economic opportunities, were seeking pre-college skills, wanting to get job training to enter the workforce, and maybe had some college credits, or maybe were during their experience in Early Head Start and Head Start completing some ESL activities or GED. So I think as you heard from Denise and from Emily, we really looked inward and identified those systems and those strategies that we had been able to create to successfully support economic opportunities in our own workforce within our organization, and then really use those successful systems to extrapolate them to become something larger, to become a two-generation programming approach. We really, if you want to go ahead and proceed the slide, Emily, we really thought about our two-generation program design in a little bit different way. What we heard from all of those array of services that the CAP offices offer that really build all those assets that are so necessary to support Early Head Start and Head Start families as they enter the workforce. So our two-generation program design really included those pre-college skills and those job training skills to support them entering the workforce in a high-needs job, and that was as a teacher assistant in the Head Start program and in other early care and education providers in the Phoenix metropolitan area. So we conceptualized the model that we had planned for some time, and then we really looked outside our own program. I think that that came up a couple times in references that Denise made and that Emily has made with the other national funding opportunities. I think for a long time Head Start has held the philosophy that we often become the end-all be-all to all activities that we're trying to achieve with the children and families in our program. And I think in the context of two-generation programming, it's essential that you look externally to have partners who are really skilled in supporting the individuals in the community to enter workforce and to get the asset building that is associated with the entry into economic opportunities in the larger communities. So you want to move the slide forward, Emily, please? We did exactly that. We looked out into the community, and we were, and we looked to see who was doing this type of work to support economic development and empowerment for low-income families, and that's where we met Katie and other colleagues at the Live and Learn Foundation. And that was really the segue into solidifying our ability to support two-generation program funding, but then also to gain the knowledge and expertise that they really brought from being a community provider and resource to who do this work with low-income families in the Phoenix area. So I turned things for Katie to add in that context as we came together in this funding design in 2012.
Absolutely. So just to give you a bit of background on Live and Learn, we're a privately funded nonprofit organization. We've been running for a little over 3 years now, and we partnered with Southwest Human Development very early on in the piece, actually right at the very beginning, and it's certainly one of our very successful segments of what we do. We work with a number of different women in the community, supporting them into career pathways in various different areas, but our work with Southwest Human Development in terms of the Child Development Associate degree has been very successful and grown leaps and bounds since the first lot of students graduated in 2013, from the 2012-2013 year. So many synergies between what Live and Learn does and what Southwest Human Development does, and you know, I think we both assist each other so much, and that's why we've seen so much success in this area. A number of the things that were already touched on, particularly by Denise, you know, we're very focused on the job training for high needs jobs. We're working towards helping the women go with their college credits and go further on their college pathway. And we work in tandem with Southwest Human Development on that in terms of funding, opportunity. You know, we're a total partnership. We are nothing without our collaborations in the community. Southwest Human Development being one of those large partners that we work with, but we also work with colleges, we work with other community supports, and we are working to assist the women and their families in a very holistic way, touching on financial literacy, stable housing, and a number of other areas. We feel very strongly that the Child Development Associate program that the women go through as part of our partnership with Southwest Human Development is very much just a first step in their journey. It's a great first step, and it's very important for the women who oftentimes are the first in their family to earn any sort of credential. But by the time they've completed that 9-month pathway, we also provide a lot of soft skills and other training, including basic computing classes and an entryway into college that stands them in great stead to take next steps. And we strongly encourage them to do that. And indeed, we work with them for a period of up to and sometimes more than 2 years to see them through transitions, including starting on an associate's, finishing an associate's, or working on a bachelor's, whatever the case may be. So, you know, we're very happy with our Southwest Human Development Partnership, very glad to have found them. And as I said, the program is growing in leaps and bounds, and we started with a graduating class of 12 in 2013, and we're looking to put over 60 ladies through the program this coming year, so very exciting for us.
If you would advance to the next slide, please, Emily. And I think Katie highlighted a few of these connections that although we've had tremendous success just in the collaborative efforts that happen between Live and Learn and Southwest Human Development, the funding design and the connection of Southwest Human Development, Early Head Start, and Head Start connecting to Live and Learn has really helped our program connect to even additional resources to support our two-generation funding. And I think Katie highlighted a few of those, like Helping Hands for Single Mothers, Getting Your Feet Wet college scholarships that support part-time and full-time college entry, other asset building such as transportation, housing assistance, and those sometimes crises, access to emergency funds that might derail the economic opportunity or the entry into that college or workforce experience, and having those connections to support and prevent families from having restricted participation in the two-generation program has been a huge benefit to the collaboration and the funding design that has unfolded for us. And then if you would proceed to the next slide, Emily, please. And I think Katie will help wrap things up. I know that, Emily, you had asked us to have Katie, if she can think back to several years ago, as to when she was a funder and we first knocked on her door, what she might have seen in Southwest Human Development that made us appear to be a viable two-generation partner as they entered into that collaboration with us those many years ago.
Well, certainly, as I mentioned before, you know, a total synergy between the mission of what Live and Learn has at the heart of our program and what Southwest Human Development does. And, you know, that is certainly lifting some of these impoverished families out of that situation and into bigger and brighter futures. There was so much synergy there that, you know, it was a no-brainer from our perspective. It fits so well with our program. And the fact that Southwest Human Development offers so many support services around what we also provide, FSSs, for example, you know, the training, the relationship we have with Southwest Human Development. We could not do what we do without them, and you know, hopefully they would say the same.
Yes, we do.
It's mutually beneficial, but the success that we've seen through the families that have gone through the program has been phenomenal from our point of view, and certainly as time goes on, we are very excited by this two-generational approach that's becoming more important to us at Live and Learn, and clearly also to Southwest Human Development and Head Start in general, assessing the effect on the family at large and what impacts, seeing particularly mothers further their career, take up you know, positions in the workforce, move ahead in their career. That is having such a beneficial effect on their families and on their children. So we're very excited to kick off some research in that area and get some hard data that backs up what we already know.
Well, I think at that point we'll turn things back over to you, Emily, and I think that you had dedicated some time for question and answer to everybody on the webinar today.
Yes, absolutely, and thank you both so much. So just a quick note before we turn to questions, just a reminder, we do have our next webinar a week from today, which will focus on partnering with employers and colleges. And you can see the rest of the series up on your screen. If you're not already on our listserv and you're an NHSA member, I'd invite you to join us. It's a chance for some productive conversation and sharing of resources. And we'll have recorded events and webinars up on our website. But we do want to take some time for questions. You can go ahead on the right side of your screen and type questions into the box. Or you can raise your little hand symbol and I can call on you. So while we give everyone a minute to type, I'll go ahead and ask the first question of the folks from Arizona. Mindy, you said you went and knocked on their door. What does that look like? And in your experience, is it better to wait for a grant opportunity, or is it effective just to reach out and establish a relationship? To, I guess, both Mindy and Katie. Yeah.
I think from our perspective in early Head Start and Head Start here in Phoenix, I think reaching out, I think we often, as we gather in the National Head Start Association, we often reflect that Head Start can be, in some communities, one of the best kept secrets. And these resources that exist in the community are often operating in, simultaneous, with both parties unaware that they're really tapping in and serving very similar demographics. And so I think actually going out, even if there's not a solicitation for funding, certainly knowing the appropriate protocols in some context of foundations that might not be appropriate etiquette to follow. But I think doing education in the larger community to those entities that are doing work that's very similar to the work that we do in Early Head Start and Head Start can help stretch what, as time moves forward, seems to be more limiting resources for us to do all the things that we know we need to do with families, particularly in the context of two-generation work. And so I think really taking the initiative and reaching out is the way to go, and then to also seek out these funding, compatible funding sources as they come out from HHS and other places, as Denise highlighted from the CAP office.
Great. We did get one question about if people want to watch this again, where can they access it? It will be up on our YouTube page by the end of the week, as well as on the NHSA website. Still waiting on any other questions. Do those of you who were presenting have any questions for each other, or any last words you'd like to share?
Well, this is Denise from Community Action Partnership. I guess the only thing that I would probably, having heard Mindy and Katie speak a little bit, it is really about that intentionality and being planful about what you're looking to link together, and being planful, I guess. And I said earlier, it's not kind of a willy-nilly approach. It's really trying to be thoughtful and intentional about what you're piecing together for the parents, thinking about how you're going to be collecting that information, how you're going to be empowering them. You have a very short window with Head Start that you have this opportunity with parents, and I just can't stress enough whatever we can do to help you maximize that window of opportunity that benefits the entire family and can really change that family's life path. Head Start is really a powerful moment in time, and the two-generational approach with a special attention to parents and guardians really gives us a unique opportunity to impact that child's life for the long term.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I have 2:56 by my clock, so I guess we'll give you 3 extra minutes to get ready for your next meetings or getting back to your classrooms and staff. But this is Emily. I'm so glad you guys could all join us today, and really thank you and thank our speakers so much for a productive conversation. We hope that this furthers your knowledge of two-generation work and offers you some real concrete steps you can take as you plan for this fall and for the futures of your programs. So thanks to all of you.